Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I'm going to wait a couple of minutes for people to join before I get started with this part two. And, I hope that you all can join. If not, hopefully you'll check it out on the playback. But while we wait, I want to encourage people to follow me on Twitter at New Pos Blog. Also, I want to encourage you to follow me on Facebook at New Possibilities. So we'll wait a couple of minutes for people to join before we get started, because I want to make sure that everything is fine this go around. I did a video before, I think it was yesterday, and the audio was bad. So I apologize again for that. I want to confirm that the audio is fine. So I see that I have a few people here. Can you let me know if the audio is fine? Shout out to Gwendolyn. Thanks for tuning in. Shout out to John Pro. Thanks for tuning in. How is the audio? Can you all hear me fine? Okay, I see that Cookie Juice said the audio is fine. So I appreciate that. Okay, that's great. Okay, everybody's saying that the audio is good. Hopefully I'm not buffering. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. Over the last couple of days, there have been, there's been some conflict between Cardi B and Candace Owens. Most people are familiar with both of them. Cardi B is a famous rap artist, and she's very controversial. She had a song out not too long ago called WAP, and that song is still real popular. It's, one of those top charting songs, and it's a very controversial song. So you have Cardi B on one hand, and then you have Candace Owens. Candace Owens is a super conservative commentator. She's a Black woman, and I will go into some of the things about her later on. But I'll just leave for now. I'll just say that she's a very conservative commentator. She's featured on Fox News, and she actually started here on YouTube. So if you can bear with me in a second, I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a summary of some of the points that both of them made, and then I'm going to provide, an analysis or my opinion about what they had to say. I'm going to share my screen a few times. There have been some recent tweets involving this controversy, and I plan to talk about those tweets and add to this discussion. And for those of you who saw my last live stream on this particular subject, I will be reiterating a couple of the points made there. And I may actually delete the first video that I did because the audio is bad. And again, I want to apologize for the bad audio for that one. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So first I'll talk about what Candace Owens had to say, to begin with, and she's the one that started this whole controversy. Basically, Candace Owens was complaining about the fact that Joe Biden decided to do an interview with Cardi B. She said that African Americans basically should be insulted, that Biden decided to interview Cardi B or do an interview with her. She said that Biden was pandering to the Black community by interviewing Cardi B. She also referred to Cardi B as an illiterate rapper. And she said that Biden thinks that Black people are stupid. And that's the only reason why he would basically do this particular interview. And she went on to talk about how Biden couldn't name a single Cardi B song, and he has no idea about Cardi B. He doesn't know much about her. His handlers are the ones who set up the interview. They thought it would be a good idea. So that's one, those are some of the things that she had to say. she said that this was all demeaning to black people. She also cited the example of Hillary Clinton talking about hot sauce and all that kind of stuff. And she said that Biden and Bernie Sanders sat down with Cardi B because they think that black people are stupid. And then she went on to complain about how Joe Biden could have did an interview with some conservative intellectuals, somebody like a Larry Elder or Condoleezza Rice, or some Democratic intellectual. So that's what she had to say about Cardi B. That's one of the main complaints that she had to say initially about Cardi B. And so Cardi B did a response to Candace Owens. And what I'm going to do is just highlight a couple of things that she said. And after I do that, I'm going to go into some recent things that have been said since this. So in response to the whole thing about pandering, Cardi B said that Donald Trump panders as well. She talked about how he basically has ads running on Latino television stations where he's basically complaining about the fact that Joe Biden decided to nominate a black woman for vice president instead of a Latino. So he's trying to basically divide and conquer black people and Latino people with these particular ads. And he's basically pandering to Latinos, pretending as if, he cares about Joe Biden not appointing a Latino to that position. It's an obvious example of pandering. Another thing that Cardi B talked about is Candace Owens' self-hatred issues. As we know, Candace Owens has made disparaging remarks about black people. This woman has bashed victims of police brutality, and she's even gone as far as to raise funds for police officers who have killed black people and to defend some of these cops. Like she has organized some fundraiser for the cop that killed Rashard Brooks in Atlanta. She basically Cardi B said that Candace Owens is being pimped out by the white man, basically. And she went on to talk about how Candace Owens, despite doing all this work for the Trump administration, all this tap dancing for these conservatives, despite all of that, Candace Owens was denied an opportunity to speak at the Republican National Convention. So that was a point that was raised. She also talked about how Candace Owens has basically is betraying the black community by trying to justify the killing of George Floyd, and that's basically what she was doing. Now, she had these disclaimers in her speech about George Floyd, but for the most part, she was bashing him. She was dehumanizing him. And she was talking about how black people make people like George Floyd into heroes and martyrs and all that kind of stuff, which is complete nonsense. And also Cardi B went on to talk about how she's being trolled by Trump supporters and how Trump supporters have actually threatened her safety, by putting out her address and stuff like that and encouraging people to burn down her house or whatever. So that's some background. And since then, there have been a couple of other developments. So I'm going to start sharing my screen real quick to add some more, updates to this particular live stream. So you can bear with me a second. So here's a post that Cardi B put up, in response to this whole allegation of pandering. She's basically pointing out how even Donald Trump panders to black communities. She has this picture here with Donald Trump surrounded by these damn coons placing their hands on him and, praying for him and all that kind of stuff. the fact that the White House put out this image is an example of, is an indication that they were pandering to certain elements in the Black community. And, the Trump administration also is touting the fact that, there has been an increase in a percentage of Black people who support him. So despite, what Candace Owens is saying, Donald Trump and the Trump administration panders to Black communities too. They pander to anyone that they think will vote for them. All Donald Trump needs to do is get off, a small section of the Black vote in order to be successful. So he has pandered to certain elements in the Black community. And this is a prime example of this. So you have that. So Candace Owens put up some tweets, and one of her tweets says, "Never listen to a person that has private security but wants the public police defunded." She said, "Never listen to a millionaire that made it here in America but trashes our country." She goes on to talk about how these Hollywood idols are frauds, leading sheep down paths they would never have took if they discovered success. And then she goes on, she has some of these little taunting tweets. I'm not going to read those, but you see them here. And then she has this tweet where she has the audacity to mention Malcolm X's name. She said, "Malcolm X warned us years ago about the puppetry of interviews like Cardi B and Joe Biden. He always spoke out against the white liberal game of using entertainers as pawns." And she goes on to say, "This really isn't about you, Cardi B. This is about Black America waking up to Democrat racism." Now, this stuff is so ridiculous. I'm going to first respond to, some of these tweets. But let me see. But before I do that, I'm going to fight the urge to do that right now and show you this other tweet that Cardi B put up in response to Candace Owens. So Candace Owens put out this tweet where she said, "You are encouraging millions to vote for the man that locked up entire generations of Black men." And then she goes on to say, "Maybe go Google Joe Biden and the 1994 crime bill. Joe Biden used you. Bernie Sanders used you. Neither of them like or know your music. They think you're dumb." And then she has hashtag Trump 2020. And then Cardi B did a video where she was responding to, some of the things that Candace Owens talked about. And she basically said that, a lot of her audience is not, they're not familiar with politics. A lot of them are not political. They're not engaged in the political process. So in many ways, by her doing that interview with Joe Biden, it piqued their interest and made them want to learn more about the candidates and to actually vote in the election. So, that's a summary of some of the developments in this whole beef between Cardi B and Candace Owens. And so what I want to do is just go back to, a couple of these tweets and provide my commentary. And then I'm going to talk about some of the other points that were raised during this particular back and forth between these two people. One thing that I have to take issue with is Candace Owens trying to cite Malcolm X, trying to use him to advance her foolishness. I find this to be repulsive. I find it to be sickening because Malcolm X would have condemned somebody like a Candace Owens. He would have called her a house Negro, a coon. He may not have used the word coon, but he would have called her a house Negro, Uncle Tom, etc. That's what he would have called Candace Owens, because we are talking about a Black woman who defends cops that kill Black people. We're talking about a Black woman who wants to pretend that racism doesn't exist in our society. We're talking about a Black woman who has trashed and condemned the civil rights organizations that are out there protesting against police brutality, from Black Lives Matter to even older traditional civil rights organizations. This woman has trashed them. This is a woman who, again, is raising funds for a police officer who killed a Black man. This is, of course, Malcolm X would condemn this woman, but yet this woman has the nerve to put out a tweet where she's trying to use Malcolm X as an example, or to make a point towards Cardi B. And I just find that to be repulsive, that she would try to pimp Malcolm X's legacy to make arguments in favor of somebody like a Donald Trump. The question is, like, Malcolm X would have never have supported a Donald Trump, given his long record of racism and bigotry. There's no way in hell that a Malcolm X will be supporting some Negro that's running around here tap dancing for Donald Trump. And I will, there's one thing that I will say about this whole point about entertainers. Malcolm X did make a point about that. He talked about how, white people try to make entertainers our leaders. And I think that that's a very valid point. He talked about how, these important white politicians would try to meet with Black entertainers as if Black entertainers were our leaders. When they were having meetings around issues of civil rights and all that stuff, they would meet with these Black entertainers. So I understand that point, and I agree with that point wholeheartedly. But an interview that Cardi B did doesn't mean that they're viewing her as some kind of leader. As I said before, the main reason why Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders would reach out to somebody like Cardi B is because she has a large audience. She reaches millions of people. She has millions of followers. And whether people like it or not, celebrities are able to reach large audiences of people. Many people, as Cardi B pointed out, who are not into politics are learning about politics simply by her doing an interview. Many people that may not have even considered voting may consider voting now because of, what she has done to encourage people to vote. And I think that that's appropriate. I mean, I think that is a great thing that we have entertainers using their voice to encourage people to be engaged and concerned about the politics on a national, state, and local level, because these politics impact our lives. And it's a good thing that she's encouraging people to vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump for all the reasons that I've laid out in video after video. So I don't see this as a situation where Joe Biden is viewing her as some kind of leader or spokesperson for the Black community. It's about leveraging her platform to reach as many people as possible. And, this is no different from, these politicians going on, on the late night shows and all that kind of stuff, the late night entertainment shows to reach large audiences. Like they go on, for instance, Jimmy Fallon or, one of these other shows. Or even some of them even go on shows like Saturday Night Live. They are not going there because they think that these people are deep intellectuals and they want to discuss some profound ideas with some people. They are going to those programs so that they can reach a large audience. Nobody has no hissy fit and all that kind of stuff when, these politicians go on a show like Jimmy Fallon or something like that. And I just think that a lot of these people, it's not even just Candace Owens, but you got a lot of these people with this fake outrage about Cardi B meeting with Joe Biden. And you have example after example of politicians meeting with popular figures in order to reach large numbers of people and to let them know about their campaign. That's only intelligent. And, as I was saying before, like these intellectuals that we all respect, people like Cornel West or Henry Louis Gates or, some of these other thinkers and intellectuals, or even somebody like an Angela Davis, they don't reach as many people as, as a Cardi B, unfortunately. And that's just the reality of it. So you're going to have politicians go to people like Cardi B and other entertainers. You're going to have politicians go on programs like The Breakfast Club. But let's not pretend like Joe Biden doesn't meet with Black intellectuals, like Joe Biden has never been interviewed by, serious journalists and all that, serious Black journalists. I mean, it happens all the time. So I think that too often what happens is people exaggerate things. And then another thing that I want to talk about is this. People have this idea that you have to be some kind of intellectual in order to talk about politics, in order to, to be respected in that arena and stuff like that. And I just don't think that's true. Anybody can educate themselves about politics. Anybody with just a basic understanding is qualified to speak about politics. So this notion that somehow Cardi B is not qualified to speak on political issues is ridiculous. And then, one of the things that, a lot of people were suggesting is that, her interview with him was ridiculous and pointless and all that kind of stuff. And that's just not the case. Like, during that, I watched the interview for myself. She talked about a lot of important issues. Of course, as I said before in my prior video, she didn't go into the weeds and talk about all these different laws and, the details of policies, but they had a very important discussion about very important issues such as police brutality, issues such as universal health care, issues such as free tuition for college, and issues such as taxes and the COVID-19. So I think that, a lot of people downplay this stuff, and they don't see the value in what she did. And I just think that, we are quick to condemn these artists when they do something wrong. And I'm one of the people that condemn them. I'm one of the people that speak out against these artists. As you all know, I did a video highly critical of that song WAP. I talked about the imagery that was presented in that song. I fully expressed my views about that. But when somebody does something that's commendable, you have to also recognize that. And I think that it is commendable for this woman to use her platform to encourage people to vote. Our vote is critical in this election. And then that's another thing that I want to talk about before I talk about how critical our vote is. People are acting like Joe Biden used her as some kind of Black spokesperson, and that's not what it is. I mean, first of all, her audience, her followers are not just Black people. She has a large and diverse fan base and everything like that. So it's not like she's some representative of Black people, and that's not what the interview was about. But I want to go back to this point about voting. I think that it's great that she encouraged people to vote. You have a lot of young people who may not be into politics and stuff like that. And because of her interview, because of the things that she has been saying on her large platforms, she may encourage people to vote. And this interview, in a lot of ways, is no different from people using celebrities to sell products, because people, these corporations and candidates understand and realize what kind of influence and what kind of power these entertainers have. That's why they will have them, for instance, selling Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? or a certain type of shoe. You know, why they will have a particular brand of shoe associated with the name of some famous basketball player or something like that, because they understand the value in the brand of that particular artist, and they understand the influence the artist has. A lot of times when an artist wears certain types of clothes, people follow that particular trend. And why not use that power and influence to encourage people to make the better decision in this election? So I have to commend her for using her voice in that kind of way. So let me go to some of these other new points that Candace Owens raised on here. But before I do that, I'm going to highlight, a couple of other points in response to some of the things Candace Owens said. She also mentioned something about how Cardi B is quote unquote chasing clout and all that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, Candace Owens is the clout chaser. She's the one that constantly trolls celebrities and stuff like that in hopes that they will mention her name and give her free publicity. And unfortunately, that's what has happened with this Cardi B situation. Um, and the fact of the matter is, Cardi B's criticism of Candace Owens is on point, because Candace Owens is nothing but a coon. She's nothing but a spokesperson for white supremacy, a mouthpiece, a buffer Negro for white supremacy. That's what she is. Anybody who defends police brutality, um, you know, raises funds for cops to kill our people, they are nothing but a coon. They are, somebody like that is despicable, and nobody respects a traitor. And on top of that, this woman, Candace Owens, is a fraud. She is a swindler. She is not a real conservative. She is hustling these white people for their money. And that reminds me of, I got to go back to that Malcolm X point. She would use the name of Malcolm X, somebody who, talked about the need for Black men and women to be together. He talked about Black love and the importance of it. But here you had this coon who is not only married, literally married to white supremacy. This woman is married to a white man, but she want to quote Malcolm X. I mean, this woman is a clown. She is a joke, and she's not even a real conservative. So what I'm going to do is pull up this article from News One. If you all can, let me just stop sharing my screen for a second. So I'm going to pull up this article from News One where they talk about Candace Owens and her hustling people, and just pointing out how she's such a phony. All these lies that this woman presents one image, like makes it seem like she's been down with Donald Trump and the conservatives and all that kind of stuff, when she's nothing but a hustler. Excuse me, she's nothing but a joke. Let me pull this article up. And I may do a couple of live streams after this, but I'm going to pull this article up, which runs through her history. It breaks down how this woman is a joke. So just bear with me one second. All right, so let me share this. So here's the article right here, and I will get to your comments in a second. I see that Cohen said he would rather spend his time doing something more productive. And I get that. You all saw the title when you came here. Like, if you felt that way, you shouldn't even wasted your time clicking on the video. But anyway, let me go to this article right here. It points out how much of a fraud this woman is, man. You know, it cites this example, you know, this suit that she was involved in. You know, here you have this woman who regularly condemns civil rights organizations, but this is a woman who depended on those very civil rights organizations to defend her when she claimed that she was a victim of racism. You know, a victim of racism. And this is the same woman that pretends like racism doesn't exist in this society. This is the same woman that pretends like racism is not a real issue today in the Black community. You know, this article also points out how Candace Owens was a CEO of an anti-Trump, liberal-leaning website called Degree 180, where she was condemned on that website. She condemned the Republican Tea Party, and she talked about Donald Trump. And then, you know, it cites some other examples of some foolish stuff that she said. So you got this woman talking about people being fiscally irresponsible and stuff. You know, but yet and still, you know, there are examples of her being being financially irresponsible. And, you know, so you can check this out for yourself. Let me see. I'm going to go to a couple of other examples. Yeah, so what I'll do is just post a link to this article. I'm not going to go through everything in the article, but you all can check it out for yourselves. It just provides example of the after example of this woman and her hypocrisy, and it just shows how she's just full of crap. So let me go back to some of these tweets that she put out. And, you know, one thing that I noticed with people like Candace Owens and these other conservatives, like instead of addressing the arguments that people are actually raising, what they want to do is like engage in ad hominem attacks and just focus on the fact that the person who's making certain position, taking certain positions, or you know, making certain statements, they try to discredit them by talking about how wealthy they are. You know, like here she's talking about Cardi B has all the security, but yet she's calling for defunding the police and stuff like that. She's talking about how she's a millionaire, but she trashes our country. I haven't heard her trash America. You know, I haven't heard Cardi B do that. I mean, she's done a lot of things, but I haven't heard her trash this country. So I don't know what Candace Owens is talking about there. And supporting defunding the police is not, I mean, even though I don't think that's the best slogan, it's not what a lot of people are distorting it to be. It doesn't mean taking all the money from the police and making the streets unsafe and all that kind of stuff. That's not what defund the police is about. It's about modest reductions in police budgets and having those funds go to programs that fight crime in other ways, for instance, or taking away certain responsibilities from the police department and reallocating those to other agencies better suited to deal with some of those things, like you know, problems like with mental health. Instead of that being a police issue, it could be an issue for trained counselors and all that kind of stuff. And it's about the police being overburdened with so many different responsibilities that really shouldn't be their responsibility. Now, you've heard me criticize the defunding police before and all that kind of stuff, because you do have people that have extreme interpretations of defunding the police. And again, it's not the best slogan because these Republicans have been able to use that slogan to undermine the movement to end police brutality in this country. So let me see if there's some other tweets that I wanted to talk about. I addressed that. pandering point already. Um, yeah, and I think this is a valid point that Cardi B raises about Donald Trump. She said, "You are encouraging millions to vote for a man who laughs every time a black man is killed by a cop and tells Americans to drink bleach." And then she talks about how Trump didn't even have you talking at the Republican convention. He thinks you're dumb. Master, Master did you dirty, but you mad at me. Exactly. I mean, this woman again spent her whole time, doing all this tap dancing, uh, shucking and jiving and cooning for these Republicans, only for them to discard her like used toilet paper when it came to this Republican National Convention. Um, so yeah, I think that that's a valid point that she raises. Also, Donald Trump doesn't care nothing about police brutality or black men being killed by these stinking pig police. But yet you got this tap dancing minstrel Candace Owens running around here supporting this guy. And again, like her example about the bleach, this guy literally talked about something to that effect. To deal with the coronavirus. This man is a disaster. Over 180,000 people have died. And that could have been prevented if this man took strong and swift action to help prevent the spread of this virus. But instead, we have thousands upon thousands of people dying from this virus. According to a report I saw on CNN, like 1,000 people in the United States die per day from this virus. More people have died in the United States than any other industrialized country, according to all these news reports. So these are very serious issues. And I frankly can't understand how any black person in their right mind would support Donald Trump. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to check out your comments, see what you all have to say. So Hollow Point said defending Cardi B is a new low. I mean, Hollow Point, you make some of your comments are just absolutely ridiculous. I've already pointed out how I spoke out against, the negative images that Cardi B has presented in some of her songs. I mean, the fact of the matter is, just because, somebody does one thing wrong, it doesn't mean that you universally condemn anything that they do. Even if a coon like Candace Owens came up with the cure for cancer, I wouldn't be like condemning her for finding a cure to cancer. Or if she had to change her heart and she decided to speak out on police brutality issues and to stand up and, defend and speak on behalf of black people in a genuine and sincere way, I wouldn't condemn her. Like a lot of people are short-sighted. And, I really think that some of these people that be on here are just Trump supporters. They want to see Donald Trump win, and that's the bottom line. They don't want to see, they just want to see Donald Trump win. And I think that may be the case with people like a Hollow Point and stuff. They, discourage people from voting. And all that's going to do is help Donald Trump get elected. And these same people will be on here crying about how racist Donald Trump is. I just don't get that logic. It doesn't make any kind of sense to me. I think that it's a great thing that this woman is encouraging people to vote. I think it's a great thing that she had a discussion about important issues that matter to our people, that matter to all American people. Most American, issues of healthcare, issues of the coronavirus, issues of police brutality. What's wrong with a woman talking about what's wrong with Cardi B talking about police brutality? What's wrong with her raising that issue? What's wrong with her raising the issue that these stinking Republicans had a convention, um, and they brought the attorney general from, I think it's from Kentucky. Yeah, from Kentucky, Daniel Cameron, um, to speak when this man is not doing anything about that Breonna Taylor situation. I mean, he has taken no action. No charges have been filed against those police officers that killed that young sister. I mean, I think that people's priorities are all the way fucked up. You know, people are preoccupied with bullshit, basically. You know, preoccupied with, you know, whether Kamala Harris is black enough, preoccupied with the fact that Joe Biden had this interview with Cardi B. Like, that's such a huge problem in their little minds. But they don't have that same kind of concern or urgency around all these issues that impact the black community. They don't have that same kind of urgency around voter suppression that the Trump administration has implemented. They don't have that same sense of urgency as the Trump administration has made it clear that they don't believe that there's systemic racism in police departments. They don't have that same kind of urgency when you have a Donald Trump talking about he's going to protect these white affluent suburbs from affordable housing being put into their communities. In other words, protect those communities from black people. They don't care nothing about this stuff. They don't care nothing about a president that says that police brutality is some local issue and it's not an issue for the federal government. They don't care about a president that's in the this working and pandering to white supremacists. Instead, they want to be concerned about Cardi B doing an interview with Joe Biden. I mean, it just tells you how messed up their priorities are. And I find a lot of these, and just to be blunt, like I find a lot of these Hotep type people to be worse than a coon. You know, I think that they're worse than a coon because at least these coons tell you up front that they support Donald Trump. At least they're honest. At least they tell you where they stand. But you had these fake pro-black people on here that are basically operating as operatives for the Trump administration by suppressing the black vote. Suppressing the black vote and helping Donald Trump win. That's what they're doing. But I could do a whole nother video about that, and I'm just going to, chill for now. So somebody said they don't like Candace Owens, but they happen to agree with her analogy on Cardi B. I mean, what analogy is that? Candace Owens is a clown, man. I mean, she's a joke. I mean, and it's just a shame that woman gets so much attention and so much publicity. And it's a shame that, a lot of these fake pro-black people, these photeps, find themselves, and I'm not saying this about you, I'm talking about in general, they find themselves on the same side of issues as a Candace Owens. Yeah, and Candace Owens, like, constantly, as SG points out, she's constantly putting out anti-black talking points. That's what she does. Like, she's always talking about how black people are overly emotional, irrational. She harps on so-called black on black violence, making black people appear to be stupid, basically suggesting that black people are stupid. She actually referred to black people as chimpanzees. in one of her videos or something like that. But this is the person that you got some of these Negroes caping for. So Cohen said Malcolm X wouldn't have supported Cardi B either. He was anti-liberal. He would have been horrified by her music. Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you all need to separate two different issues. There's one issue, which is Cardi B's song and her music. Another issue is her, this interview and her talking about politics and using her platform to encourage people to vote. Those are two different issues. Of course, Malcolm X wouldn't condone, her music and all that kind of stuff. He wouldn't have condoned it. He would have spoke out against it just like I did. For people that don't know, I got a video, again, highly critical of her song WAP. He spoken out about that. And also Malcolm X, he did have a problem with some of these deceptive white liberals and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people try to use that language to suggest that Malcolm X was a supporter of these Republicans. They try to use him and misquote him to make it seem as if he supported these Republicans when he didn't. Malcolm X is also the person that talked about how he would work with anybody that was for fighting for freedom and stuff like that. Later in his life, that's something that he talked about. Malcolm X talked about those kind of things, talked about the need to build coalitions and stuff like that and to work with others, not only just Black people, but with others outside of the Black community. Malcolm X had evolving views during his lifetime. He was not some, Black conservative as these people try to paint him out to be. And also another thing is this: Malcolm X understood the importance of the vote. I encourage people to listen to his speech, The Ballot or the Bullet. It's here on YouTube. You can listen to it in its entirety. He talks about how critical the Black vote is. He talks about how we have the power to influence the Democratic Party. He talks about how these Democrats can't win an election, a national election, without the Black vote. And he talks about how we need to leverage that vote. So I think that, people oversimplify Malcolm, and when they should be, doing a more thorough analysis of Malcolm X instead of, just falling for these particular memes that people put out here about Malcolm X and these tweets like this tweet from Candace Owens. Yeah, so that's what I have to say about that. So let me go down to some more comments. So somebody said Cardi B ain't Black, but has the ability to influence millions of Black women and girls. How is that possible? I mean, it's, first of all, a lot of her fans are Black. I mean, even if I'm not going to get into the weeds about whether she's Black or not. I'm tired of those particular discussions. But the fact of the matter is, a large segment of her audience is Black. She does have influence. And that was one of my concerns when I talked about her song WAP. I talked about the influence that she could have over the young people and all this and that. She does have influence in the Black community and in other communities, just by the, her fan base and all that kind of stuff. She has influence, without a doubt. And it's like, why not use that influence for something positive? Yeah, I mean, it's just funny how, like, all of a sudden she doesn't have influence when it comes to politics, like when it comes to this particular interview that she did with Joe Biden. But when it comes to her songs, all of a sudden she's a threat. She's dangerous. She has so much influence and power. And I just find that to be problematic, like how people are just so hypocritical in their viewpoints. Like on one hand, they're saying she has influence, and then in the next breath, they're talking about how she has no influence. Yeah, I will say this. Like somebody mentioned, her ignorance is not a good look for Democrats or our community. Um, and what I'll say is this: like, even if people were to say that she's ignorant, and I mean, she's not the best person. Like, I wouldn't choose her to be a spokesperson. Like, she's not the best person, for political talk or whatever. But I will say this: she is not as ignorant as Candace Owens. Now, Candace Owens is very articulate. She's a great speaker. She's somebody that's persuasive to ignorant people. Like if you don't know what's going on, or if you're some white person that wants to hear a Negro put out all your racist talking points, then she's somebody that people will gravitate to and be impressed by. But a lot of the things that she says are very ignorant and stupid. Her, she regularly makes ignorant and stupid statements, regularly makes statements stereotyping black people, regularly makes all kinds of despicable and ignorant statements about, again, about racism not being a real issue, about police brutality. And she constantly throws out here this red herring about black on black violence. The woman is an ignoramus. She's just an articulate ignoramus. She's just an articulate, miseducated fool. I mean, and that's what Carter G. Woodson's book is about, the miseducation of the Negro, and she's a prime example of that. She is more ignorant again than Cardi B. Um, and you can say what you want about Cardi B. She may not be the most articulate person. She may not be she may not be a role model and this and that. But when it comes to these political issues, she is more on point than a Candace Owens ever will be. This is a woman. I mean, the ignorance is so deep with Candace Owens. I mean, I could go on and on for days and days. Again, my point is that Candace Owens, despite her being very articulate, being a great speaker, she is an ignoramus. She is ignorant as hell. I mean, any black person supporting a racist like Donald Trump is super ignorant, is super stupid. And I'm just being blunt, man. So when you're looking at those two, I see her as, Candace Owens as being far more ignorant than a Cardi B. Far more ignorant. Again, I'm going to have to keep reiterating it. This is a woman who is actually raising funds for a killer cop. But y'all are more concerned about Cardi B doing this interview than with a black coon named Candace Owens actually raising funds for a killer cop. So I'm just looking through your comments now. Yeah, and I encourage, like, I wonder, as SG pointed out, Cardi, she said, SG said this. I want to share this comment. SG said Cardi B's interview of Joe Biden was actually informed if you sat and watched it. And I wonder how many of these people that got so much to say on here actually sat down and watched her interview. I would be willing to bet you that hardly any of these people actually watched her interview. But yet they got so much to say. They got so much to talk about, so much to complain about, even though they haven't even seen the interview itself. Um, oh, and I see what Cohen was saying. I quoted you out of context. Um, but yeah, yeah. So I think that people need to watch that interview before they get on here trying to criticize it. Yeah, I noticed that later, Cohen. I sorry about that. I noticed it later because I just glanced at your comment. Sorry about that. Um, yeah, and Cardi B did ask him about very important issues. So again, I just encourage y'all to check it out for yourself. Shout out to T Boy. Thanks for your comment. I appreciate it. Yeah, I agree with this, Tabs. I think that she should. I don't agree with that some of her music. I think that she should use her music in a better way. Um, and just be more conscious of the impact that her music will have on people. And I hope that she eventually evolves to the point where she does that, where she's more concerned about the image that she's putting out here. And this is a great point. Like, this is something that people just don't understand. Like, Candace Owens is dangerous. And, the reason why she's dangerous is because she legitimizes a lot of the racist policies that these Republicans are trying to implement. Um, that's why she's dangerous. Yeah, so just bear with me 1 second. Sorry, y'all. I think this is a good point. Bonafide said I didn't watch or hear this interview, and I know that people could be multidimensional, but I find it interesting that Cardi B can be politically influential along with so many other celebrities. Yeah, and I think this is a great point, Aunt Jams. Cardi B talked about how in one of her videos, either on Instagram or Twitter, she talked about how she would criticize Joe Biden if he took a position that she opposed. And you hardly ever hear Candace Owens say anything like that about Donald Trump. Yeah, so I see Elaine said that she thinks that Candace Owens believes the things that she says. I don't know. Like, I really don't know if she does, if she honestly believes that stuff, because all you have to do is go through that track record that I started to go through, where she's been on both sides of the issues. you know, and I just think that for her, it's about a paycheck. I mean, she is a very passionate speaker and all that kind of stuff. She does come across as convincing, but her track record says otherwise. Her track record says that this is not somebody that's a genuine conservative. She's not, she's a clout chasing person. You know, and a lot of these conservatives are like that. They are in it for the money and they are in it for the attention. Um, because, you know, like it is more challenging for someone to get recognition as a Democrat or as you know, a liberal or progressive or even a radical um, in today's media. Um, but if a black person is out here cooning and tap dancing and, you know, attacking Black Lives Matter and defending the police, they are more likely to get national attention. That's why you see, for instance, here on YouTube, a lot of these tap dancers, these bootlickers, these ass kissers, you will see them have tens of, you know, hundreds of thousands of subscribers and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if I don't think that she actually believes this stuff. I really don't. I think it's about a paycheck for her. Yeah, so I want to thank you all for tuning in. You know, I appreciate you all providing your comments. And again, I just want to clear up the thing that I said about Cohen. He was talking about the interview that Cardi B did. He wasn't talking about, this particular live stream. So with that, I'm going to say peace and blessings to each and every one of you. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Peace and blessings, everyone. Have a great evening. And I may do one more live stream. So if you're around, hopefully you can check it out. Peace and blessings. Have a good evening.